Today we're going to talk about arthropods. This is week 5 of the second quarter of a biology class, and we are finally moving into a group of animals that is an invertebrate group of animals. Invertebrate animals, as would make sense, are animals that do not have a backbone. Arthropods, the term arthropod means jointed foot, and represents about 3/4 of all animal species, both vertebrates and invertebrates. Instead of a backbone, the arthropods have an exoskeleton. The exoskeleton is the support for the organs, support and protection, and functions essentially as a endoskeleton functions, except it's on the outside of the body. And this exoskeleton is made up of specific material called chitin. This is the main compound in the exoskeleton, and it's chemically similar to cellulose. Insects are the largest group of arthropods, and insects represent 70% of all animal species. An entomologist is a person who studies insects, and insects are divided into 3 specific areas: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And as you'll see in the future, when we're talking about other arthropods, they are distinguished from insects in the different regions. First of all, insects have antennae. They have compound eyes, simple eyes, trachea, and legs, and wings. Now, we will go through each of these parts of the insect anatomy in more detail, but these are various aspects of the insect anatomy that you'll need to understand. The life cycle of insects is fairly simple. They do have the process of metamorphosis like amphibians, and just as a reminder, what that means is that there's a significant change both anatomically and physiologically from the infant to the adult. Now, incomplete metamorphosis is when the infant stage significantly resembles the adult stage. And so there are still some differences, but essentially the infant stage is a small version of the adult stage, whereas complete metamorphosis, there is no resemblance, no relationship between the infant stage and the adult stage. So here's an example of complete metamorphosis. You have the egg, which produces the infant stage, if you will, or the larval stage, and this worm has no resemblance to this adult over here. In between, there is the pupa, which is the cocoon, and essentially the worm enters this cocoon, and during the process, when it comes out in this adult figure, and as I said, there is no resemblance between the two. Unlike that complete metamorphosis, the incomplete metamorphosis, you start with an egg, and out pops an infant that by all standards looks very much like the adult, and then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger until it reaches adult size. And so this is the difference between complete and incomplete metamorphosis, and this is not significantly different than what happens to mammals or humans, where the infant looks very much different, is smaller, but looks like a human, and all during the thing it just gets bigger and more complex. Again, looking at incomplete metamorphosis, you start with an egg case, then it moves to a nymph stage, multiple nymph stages, all look like the adult, and then you end up at the adult stage. The complete metamorphosis, you start with an egg. The larva looks nothing like the adult. It enters a pupa or cocoon stage, and then when it emerges from the pupa, it looks like the adult. And you can see that this ladybug doesn't look anything like this larva back here. The grasshopper is a typical insect, and we will use this insect to focus on anatomy. So when we look at the head, we see the various parts of the head, and I'm going to go through those now in more detail. The antennae, there's a single pair of antennae. The antennae are responsible for the senses of smell, touch, and taste, and these are the antennae right here. The simple eye, an eye is a simple eye when there's a single lens and a single retina associated with that lens. Okay, so it detects light and shadow, and on this grasshopper, the simple eye is right here. Okay. The compound eye, on the other hand, is typical in an insect. There are independent lenses and retinas which all come together to create a single eye. And it's sensitive to shape and color. And that's this big thing that we associate with an eye, is this part right here. And then the mouth parts, the components of the insect's mouth, are down here. The second part of the head, you remember there are 3 parts to an insect: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. The second part is the thorax, and it extends from the last of the head here to where the abdomen starts back here. And so the thorax is this part in here. Externally, you have the coxa, which is this first leg associated with the thorax. The trochanter, which is the second leg, second part of that same leg, and then the femur, which is the third part of this same leg. So you have the coxa, which attaches to the thorax, the trochanter, which is the intermediate part, and then the femur right here. And this is all the first leg on the insect. The tibia is this next portion right here. And then lastly is the tarsus. And you'll recognize these names if you haven't had done anything with humans. You'll recognize the femur is the upper part of the leg in a human. The tibia is below the knee. This is above the knee, below the knee. And then the tarsus in a human are the bones in the ankle. And then the last section of the 3 sections of an insect are the abdomen, is the abdomen. In the abdomen are spiracles, which are these areas right here. They are openings to allow intake of air. The tympanum, which is a single eardrum on each side of the abdomen. It's not shown on this diagram. Now if we move back, we went through the 3 sections, looking through the external anatomy of the grasshopper. Now we're going to move back and look at various systems. And the first system we're going to look at is the GI system, where digestion and absorption occur. And this begins with the esophagus. The mouth is down here, and this tube-like structure is the esophagus. And the esophagus always leads to, or crop, where the food is then stored. So all this part along here is the esophagus going into the crop. The crop then leads to a gizzard, and you'll remember the gizzard is the area where food is ground up. And then the stomach. And the stomach is back here. And the stomach is where digestive juices are added. So this is one of the differences between a lot of the earlier animals and humans and mammals, is the fact that in the humans and mammals, the stomach is where storage occurs, grinding occurs, and the introduction of digestive enzymes. All those 3 functions, storage, grinding, and digestion, are separate in, for example, these arthropods, these insects. So you have storage in the crop, grinding in the gizzard, and then digestive juices added here in the stomach. And behind the stomach is a place called the gastric ceca, which does not exist in mammals and in humans. And this produces special gastric enzymes to digest food. The latter part of the digestive system is the colon. The colon is where water is generally reabsorbed, and then the food is, or what's remaining after the food has been absorbed, is then dispelled through the rectum and anus. Taking on now the second and third system, the first system being the GI or digestive system, the second and third system being the circulation and excretion. We look at this diagram. Now, this is the first time we'll be talking about an open circulatory system. An open circulatory system means that at some point along the way, the blood exits the blood vessels and is free to move around, and then it is recollected. The ostium, which is shown here, is the area where blood re-enters the heart, which is here, and then switching over to the excretion system, the excretion occurs in the malpighian tubules, which is a insect word for kidneys. We're going to talk about the fourth system, the reproduction and life cycle system. The reproduction and life cycle system starts with the fact that the reproductive organs are in the abdomen and are the ovaries and the female eggs and oviduct. And the urogenital opening is where the sperm is introduced and held until fertilization occurs. And fertilization is internal. The testes, the sperm are produced, and then there's a receptacle, as I said, which is in the female where the sperm stays until the eggs are laid. An ovipositor is the sharp-pointed organ that digs a hole in the ground for the depositing of eggs.